Dear viewers, welcome back to this channel. And through this video, uh, I will talk and discuss little bit about a pamphlet or a book written by Pandita Ramabai, and the book name is A Testimony of Our Inexhaustible Treasure, which was published in 1907. Okay, so I will just read line by line this whole PDF, and through that reading, I hope you will get uh, some insights about this book. This book was Pandita Ramabai's last public discourse, and this was a pamphlet narrating a spiritual odyssey that culminated in her final acceptance of the Christian faith. Means, when she was born, at that time she belonged to Hindu Brahmin family. After that, uh, from her father's inspiration and encouragement, she had taken education in Sanskrit. Then she moved on uh, to reform many evil elements of then contemporary society when British was still ruling our India. Means the British Raj was going on. Uh, if you read this book, then we will get to know that Pandita Ramabai uh, had converted her religion into Christianity. Means though she was born in a Hindu uh, family, Hindu faith family, but at the later part of her life, she has changed her view, or she has changed her perspective towards her religious identity. And at last, before her death, she has accepted Christian faith. And the last decade of her life was spent translating the Bible, which was a holy book for Christian people, into Marathi and producing Greek Marathi and Greek Hebrew lexicons, means grammar. Okay, now let's talk about her little background, means uh, in which year she was born and in which place she was born. Pandita Ramabai Saraswati, she was born on 23 April in 23 April 1858 and died 5 April 1922. She was an Indian social reformer, a pioneer in the education and an emancipation of women in India. She was the first woman to be awarded the titles of Pandita. Pandita is opposite of Pandit, means it's a female counterpart. As a Sanskrit scholar and Saraswati, after being examined by the faculty of the University of Calcutta, she was one of the 10 women delegates of the Congress session of 1889. In the late 1890s, she founded Mukti Mission at Kedgaon village, 40 miles east of the city of Pune. The mission was later named Pandita Ramabai Mukti Mission. These all things you can write in the examination if if the autobiographical elements come then. In Pandita's last work, A Testimony of Our Inexhaustible Treasure, which is written in 1907, she recognizes her father's important legacy in starting this reform path concerning women's education, a mission that she will try to accomplish and make concrete during her life. She refers to her father's attempt as an honorable heritage, describing his decision to teach her mother to read and write the Sanskrit language, starting this revolution within the domestic environment. And she has written like this in her book: My father, though a very orthodox Hindu and strictly adhering to caste and other religious rules, was yet a reformer in his own way. He could not see why women and people of Sudra caste should not learn to read and write the Sanskrit language and learn sacred literature other than the Vedas. He thought it better to try the experiment at home instead of preaching to others. He found an apt pupil in my mother who fell in line with his plan and became an excellent Sanskrit scholar. She performed all her home duties, cooked, washed, and did all household work, took care of her children, attended to guests, and did all that was required of a good religious wife and mother in our society. She devoted many hours of her time in the night to the regular study of the sacred Puranic literature and was able to store up a great deal of knowledge in her mind. The Brahmin Pandits living in the Mangalore district round about my father's native village tried to dissuade him from the heretical course he was following in teaching his wife the sacred language of the gods. He had fully prepared himself to meet their objections. His extensive studies in the Hindu sacred literature enabled him to quote chapter and verse of each sacred book, which gives authority to teach women and Sudras. His misdeeds were reported to the head priest of the sect to which he belonged, and the learned Brahmins induced the Guru to call this heretic to appear before him and before the august assemblage of the Pandits to give his reasons for taking the course or be excommunicated. Means Pandita Ramabai's father was a very visionary man at the time, and Pandita Ramabai's father did not want to what you call it, the word is not coming in my mind. That word is in Hindi, that is, yes, discrimination. Means her father did not want to discriminate any section of the society just because they belong to lower class or just because that section is called women. Means her father was a very progressive man at that time. That's why her father has inspired his daughters to learn Sanskrit and to be educated at that time when women were not allowed to be taught at schools. Okay, now let's move on. Okay, now we will dive in to learn about some of her autobiographical elements. Pandita Ramabai was an extraordinary woman of her time. an educator, scholar, feminist, and social reformer whose life was an example of how womanhood and religious identity were negotiated against the backdrop of Brahmanical culture, Christianity, and colonialism. For Hindus and Christians, her life and work, including her intellectual probings and uh, hermeneutical classes with Hindu social reformers and Christian missionaries, seem to signal contradictory and confusing messages. As a learned scholar of her own tradition, she vigorously questioned the status of women within Hinduism. Later, when she became a Christian, she challenged institutionalized Christianity with its creeds, which she felt stifled the power of the gospel, and she subsequently quarreled with Bible translators for their unwitting use of Vedantic uh, terms in the Marathi version of the Bible. She seemed to have lived and worked out her life on the margins of traditions, constructing her own independent agency. Ramabai was born into a Chitpavan Brahman family in Karnataka, means in South India. She was the youngest child of Anand Sastri Dongri, a devout Hindu and erudite Sanskrit Pandit, and his much younger wife, Lakshmi Bai. Contrary to the prevailing mood of the time, Anand Sastri believed in women's education and he opposed outdated customs like child marriage, having witnessed the sad fate of his daughters Krishnabai's child marriage. As we all know, when Ramabai was alive at the time, means child marriage was a big problem at that time, and we all know at that time women were treated as means household objects, means they were not allowed to go anywhere else without their without the permission of their father, or you can say the uh, patriarchal figures at that time. At that time, the society was means very rigid, and it was immensely conservative. But despite that, Ramabai's father was very um, progressive and visionary man. Ramabai had an unconventional upbringing in that she was taught at home, receiving Sanskrit education mainly from her mother, who herself was taught by her husband, despite fierce opposition from their community. Means her father was very, very brave, and he did not follow the conventional belief path or theory. From an early age, Ramabai was exposed to a life of never-ending pilgrimage and the reciting of the Puranas. We all know Vishnu Puran, right? In various locations, a traditional religious vocation which her family undertook in order to earn a modest living. As we all know, all the Brahmin priests at that time used to live on means what by means by a priest, means they try to live their life by doing some religious work like a priest or pandit. Okay, while this kind of precarious living brought untold hardship. Later, it freed Ramabai from domesticity and any form of patriarchal control. Ramabai's life was marked by a series of unfortunate deaths in her family. She lost her parents, elder sister, elder brother, husband, and finally her daughter shortly before her own death. Means her life was full of tragedy, yet she had left no stone unturned to reform the society. Okay, at that time, if you try to change the society, or if you try to transform the belief of that society, the rigid society of that time, that was a very challenging task. And uh, she had means tried to do it. Her travels around India with her brother after her parents' demise not only offered her the opportunity to visit several important Hindu holy places, but it also enabled her to witness the plight of women, which led her to champion their cause. Means she had traveled into different places. That's why she had learned many aspects of women. Means she had seen how women were suffering under the patriarchal society or under the superstition. So that that thing had triggered. That's why she made up her mind to 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 overhaul the whole society through education, through many other aspects. It was Ramabai's visit to Calcutta in 1878 that brought a dramatic turn of events. Her knowledge of the Sanskrit language and literary and religious texts came to be widely known and appreciated. And in recognition of her Sanskrit learning, the honorific title Pandita, means learned, one who has means lots of knowledge, was conferred on her. We all know she has written many works on women empowerment, emancipation, or how to change the society, or how women can take part in the development of the society, like that kind of means things. Through her books, she has tried to change the mind of that society, or the mind of the patriarchal figure, or the mind of the women. She defied traditional caste norms by accepting an offer of marriage from a non-Brahman Brahmo Bengali lawyer Bipin Behari Das, but he died within 2 years of their marriage, leaving her with an infant daughter Manorama. Means she was very, as we all know, she was very audacious woman. That's why she means tried to change every evil element of that society. That's why she had accepted an offer of marriage from a non-Brahmin Bengali family. That was a kind of revolt against the prevailing caste system of that time. But unfortunately, her husband died very means within 2 years of their marriage. But her husband had left her with an infant daughter, and her name was Manorama. While her early widow deepened her concern for women in a similar predicament, her faith in the kind of Puranic and ritualistic Hinduism in which she was raised was beginning to wear off. When she later became acquainted with other Hindu texts such as the Dharma Shastras with a pronounced patriarchal bias, she was not convinced that Hinduism as such she had any hope for women. As we all know, Pandita Ramabai has almost read most of the books of Hindu religion. Through Hindu religious books, means she has convinced that women's uh, position in the Hindu society is not admirable. Okay. Then she found, however, that her early forays into reform movements such as the Brahmo Samaj and Pratana Samaj were fruitless as alternatives to Hinduism because, in her view, these movements focus more on philosophical aspects than on the plight of women. Means now she is changing her mind. She is saying that these all Brahma Samaj and Parthana Samaj, these all are fruitless, means as alternatives to Hinduism, because these all are more philosophical. Means it did not do any influential work. It did not do any pivotal work on changing the plight of women, or at the changing of, or at changing the plight of women. She came into contact with Christian missionaries but had no intention of becoming a Christian until much later in 1883 while she was in England, much to the dismay of Hindus back home. So when she went to England in 1883, at that time she was heavily influenced by Christianism. So she had made up her mind to change her religion from Hinduism to Christianism. She was not wholly accepting of Christianity at this stage. She was not willing to substitute one form of patriarchy with another. She proved to be a thorn in the flesh of Anglicans when she questioned such basic tenets as the Trinity, miracles, the divinity of Christ, and the resurrection. Means not only in Hindu religion, she has protested about many things, or she has tried to reform the what do you call it, inequality. But when she has converted her religion from Hinduism to Christianity, after the conversion, then too in the uh, Christianism, she has tried to change some aspects of Christianism. Means she does not believe in Trinity or miracle or divinity of Christian, or sorry, divinity of Christ or the resurrection, and that's why she has means tried to challenge these all things after the conversion too. Means she has not utterly or blindly follow Christianism. Means she has tried to follow the Christianism by rationality or by the rationalism. Ramabai put teaching into practice. It was her early disappointment with her own community that made her turn to England and the United States to solicit help for her work among women. Realizing the importance of education for empowering women, she ran a number of vocational programs. Means it is unbelievable. At that time, means in the 19th century, 18th century, at that time she was running a number of vocational programs for women. Means that was amazing. That was incredible. At that time she was doing these kinds of thing to empower women, and now what we are doing. Okay, so that's a very means amazing thing. She has means really tried to change the mindset of the society in a practical way. Sarada Sadan, home of learning, initially a home for high caste child learning. Initially, this I have read already. Widows, but later for destitute women and children of all castes, provided training and education. Although the school was initially secular in orientation, it gradually became explicitly Christian. There were allegations of conversions at Sarada Sadan, which caused a major uh, rift between Ramabai and Hindu social reformers. Although Ramabai was exonerated, the rift remained. The rift remained. So, by this discussion or by this reading, we have got to know that Pandita Ramabai was a pioneer figure in changing the lives of women in the later part of 18th century or 19th century, or you can also say the 20th century. Means she has completely, or she has downrightly tried to overhaul the norms of that society, the so-called patriarchal society, where women were not allowed to go anywhere else. Means if she has not taken permission from her father, husband, or whatever the patriarchal figure so called. Okay, so that's all. I hope you have got a little information about Pandita Ramabai and her pamphlet, or her book, and her book name was Inexhaustible, a testimony of our inexhaustible treasure. And thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope you have enjoyed and learned many things about Pandita Ramabai and how she has tried to change the society through her endeavor. Thank you so much. Bye bye.